Hi guys, Mimi G here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Today we're going to be doing a sew along to one of my newest Simplicity patterns, 9778. We're going to be doing View B. I love this knit dress. It's an easy sew, but this is not a learn to sew video. So if you are completely new to sewing, you might want to check out my online courses at sewitacademy.com and sign up for our free trial. Now this dress is for knits only, so you can use anything from a jersey to a bamboo, to a modal knit, anything that's gonna give you a significant amount of stretch. I'm using a double brushed knit today. You're also gonna need a 1 1/4 inch elastic for this project. Now go ahead, cut your pattern pieces, cut your fabric, prep everything, and let's sew. All right, we're gonna start with our back piece, right side facing up towards me. You're gonna grab your front pieces. So this could look a little tricky, but on one side of your front, you have no notches, straight line. And on the other side, you have 2 notches and it has a bit of a curve in the center. So we wanna make sure that we're placing our shoulders together with the straight, unnotched edge facing the inside of our back. Just like this. So we're gonna go ahead and pin along the shoulders. Okay, now head over to your sewing machine and stitch your shoulders together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then go ahead and serge your raw edge. I will be using a jersey needle and using a very narrow zigzag stitch for my seams. My machine has a lightning stitch, so if you have a lightning stitch, that's the best one. That's the one I plan to use, but if not, a very, very narrow zigzag stitch will help because again, this is knit and it's gonna be pulled over your body. You don't want any stitches popping. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and do a narrow hem all the way around. So what you're gonna do is you're going to press 5/8 of an inch all the way around, starting at one end, ending at the other, and then you're going to turn that raw edge towards the fold and then stitch. Okay, so I have my double fold. I'm gonna be stitching close to where that little ridge is. I can sort of feel it. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and stitch the area where we're gonna have our front knot. So you should have 2 notches. In the center of that was your center front. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna bring those 2 notches together, right sides facing, and I'm gonna pin at those notches. Now what we're gonna do is using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, we're gonna stitch from the bottom up to where that notch is. We're gonna back stitch and stop. We need to leave this little opening here so that we can insert the other side. All right, so one side looks really weird like this, and the other one is still unstitched. We're gonna go ahead and put this through the hole that we left here, that little opening, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and open up my hole a little bit, and you're gonna place this inside and pull. Now we're essentially gonna do the same thing that we did on this side, now that it's inside through our little hole. So with right sides facing, go ahead and start towards your side seam. And you're gonna stop at the same 2 notches that you have. So we're basically doing the same thing we did before, but we have to obviously do it after we insert one side in the other. Okay, now you're gonna go to your sewing machine, you're gonna stitch starting on this end, back stitch, and then stop and back stitch when you reach your notch. Okay, so now we have our knot. We're gonna go ahead and set this aside for a sec. I want you to grab your front skirt, and then you're going to grab your front band. You're going to fold it in half lengthwise, and we're going to go ahead and pin it to the skirt. You should have some notches there, so just match that up to your notches. Fold it in half like you see here. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and stitch our band onto our front of the skirt using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So you're going to be stitching with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, but you might notice that my seam allowance is going to be bigger. The reason for that is because I actually don't have an 1¼ inch elastic. I only have an inch elastic, so I'm taking up a bigger seam allowance. But if you are using a 1¼ inch, your seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. Now go ahead and serge your seam allowance. Okay, so using an elastic threader or a safety pin, we're gonna go ahead and insert your elastic. You should have cut 2 of these pieces using your elastic guide pattern piece. Okay, right when it's at the edge here, I'm gonna go ahead and pin. Okay, now you want to tack this down, so go ahead to your sewing machine and stitch through all layers just so you can tack the elastic down in place. Okay, go ahead and grab your bodice and open it up. We're going to lay the bodice over the top of the skirt so that the hem is just past our seam line, and you're going to pin. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, we're gonna set this aside and grab the back of your skirt. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and work on our back and our back bands. So you should have cut 2. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna place one, right side's facing, and I'm gonna pin. Now because I wanna cut down on my time and having to stitch a second line, I'm going to go ahead and on the other side, I'm going to pin the other one right side to wrong side. So in essence, we're sandwiching the back piece and pin. That way I can just do these both at one time. Okay, now we're going to head to the sewing machine. We're going to stitch through all layers using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now you're going to take both of the bands and you're going to press them down because we're going to be attaching it to our skirt. And then as you can see on the other side, it'll be nice and finished. This is going to be our back elastic casing. So go ahead and press both of these down, and then we're going to go ahead and attach it to the skirt. All right, so I have my back skirt up facing me. I'm going to place my back bodice right sides facing over the top, and we're going to pin. We're going to be pinning both layers because that's going to create the casing, right? So we have folded those both down. You're going to head to your machine, and again, same as we did before, you're just going to stitch 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now we have our back casing, so you're going to do the same thing that we did for the front. You're just going to go ahead and insert your elastic. Okay, you're going to go ahead and tack down the sides. Okay, so before we stitch together our side seams, we're going to go ahead and insert our sleeve flat. Now, I always find it much easier to do knit sleeves flat this way. If you're doing the sleeveless version, then you're just going to finish off this armhole with a neat narrow double fold. I'm going to go ahead and pin my sleeve, matching my dots and my notches. Okay, now we're going to head to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch our sleeve in place, pin, and do the other sleeve the same way. All right, once we have our sleeves sewn on, we can go ahead and pin our entire side seam up the underarm seam. So I'm going to start pinning towards the bottom. If you have, if you're doing the long version like me and you're going to use the side slit, decide what side you want the slit on. Just because it's on one side in the pictures, it doesn't mean it has to be there. If you maybe you have a preferred leg you want to show, decide what side that's going to be, and then you're going to start stitching not from the bottom, but instead where that little dot is. Okay, you want to make sure that you align your seams. Now we're going to go ahead and pin our underarm seams just to make sure that those are matching up, and pin. And then you can do the rest of the bodice, maybe just one more pin here. Okay, now you're going to pin both sides that way. I've already done my other side. We're going to start stitching at the hem. We're going to work all the way up until we get to the underarm seam. You'll slightly pivot and then you stitch the rest of your sleeve. All right, so just a couple things left for you to do. One is the hem of your sleeve. You're going to finish that off. I'm also going to do mine with a double fold, so if you'd like to do that as well, you can also just serge and turn under your hem allowance for the sleeve. Now for the hem, if you have the split like I do, because you did the long version, so what you're going to do for the split is you are going to do a double fold. So I folded once, then I folded again, and what I'm going to do is then press under the hem allowance. Now I'm going to try my dress on first because I want to make sure that I like the length, so you should do that too. And then what you should do is start at one end, work your way all the way to the other side. Then you're just going to stitch your double fold in place, pivot at the top, work your way down the other end. Once you're done with that, you are all done. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this sew along. Please make sure and follow me on Instagram if you're not following already at Mimi G Style. I cannot wait to see all of your amazing makes, so please tag me. Until next time, peace.